Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you for coming under the very, very hot weather. My name is Jung-hee Lee. I'm a Vice President of IAC and the Vice Dean of IIE Kyunghee University. I'm so excited to be here today and to have opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Paul Seedhouse from Newcastle University, the UK. Dr. Paul Seedhouse is a member of the British Association of Applied Linguistics, the Authors Licensing and Collecting Society, and the British Science Association. He has worked in the field of applied linguistics over several decades. Aside from his talents, Dr. Paul Seedhouse is also prestigious author of a number of papers on the subject of applied linguistics. Especially, the Modern Language Association of America awarded him its 25th annual Kenneth W. Mildenberger Prize in 2005 for his book, The Interactional Architecture of the Language Classroom. The prize is awarded annually for an outstanding work in the field of language, culture, literacy, or literature, with strong application to the teaching of language other than English. The book was also shortlisted for the British Association for Applied Linguistic Book Prize 2005. Today, Dr. Seedhouse will give us a special lecture about how differentiation for language purposes and the learner are catered in the digital kitchen. Dr. Seedhouse considers the knowledge which is created by his research as how people communicate in professional settings. I strongly want to learn how could we adopt his idea to our classroom through this lecture. Please welcome him with an applause. Dr. Paul Seedhouse.
고맙습니다. So it is a great honor for me to be invited to give the keynote talk at the conference of the International Association for Korean Language Education. I would like to thank President Dr. Dong-Eun Lee, Vice President Jung-hee Lee, Secretary General Eun-ji Choi, and all the members of the committee. It's great to be back in Korea. It's my second time. I was here 10 years ago, but today it's much hotter than it was then. So today I'm going to be talking to you about interactive digital kitchens for differentiated language learning. So we've developed kitchens which speak to you in a foreign language and teach you how to cook dishes from that country at the same time. So I'm talking to you about 3 projects which we've done so far, and I'll also mention a 4th one which we are going to do. So the first project, 2010 to 12, was on the French language, the French digital kitchen. The second phase was also on European languages. That was a 3-year project, 2011 to 2014. And the important thing about these projects is that they were collaboration between applied linguists like myself and my colleagues in computing science. So we had to work together to design the technology. A project which I'm doing at the moment is on the Korean digital kitchen, so developing materials for learning Korean language and cuisine, and I'm doing that with my PhD student, Jae-Uk Park, who's over there. Hi, can you wave, Jayuk? Yeah, okay. And he's doing a talk this afternoon on the Korean digital kitchen, so you can go along and listen to that if you'd like to learn more about it. So that project should be finished within a year's time. Okay, so probably some of you think this is a very strange idea. Why on earth would you want a kitchen to teach you a foreign language? What is the point in doing that? Well, there are a number of reasons why it's turned out to be a good idea. The first thing is that I used to be a language teacher myself, and the problem you always have in classrooms is that students are learning language, they're learning how to put sentences together, but they're not actually learning to use language to perform real-world actions. So when you're learning in a kitchen, you're using language to carry out a real-world action, and that's meaningful to you. The second point is that there's a very close link between language, food, and culture. So lots of people in my country, England, they decide they're going to learn Italian because they like Italian food and wine as well. Okay? Or they learn French because they're interested in French culture. Okay, so there's a very strong link between language, food, and culture, and by learning language in a kitchen, we can promote this. Third reason is that learning in a digital kitchen, it's a meaningful and enjoyable real-world task. We'll see from photographs and videos that people enjoy this, and it's meaningful to them because they're actually producing something which they can eat. Now, the fourth point is one that interests me a lot. I've only understood after a number of years how important this is that when you're learning in a digital kitchen, it engages all of the 5 senses. So normally when you're learning in a classroom, you've got the sense of sight and touch and listening, but also in a kitchen, you've got taste and smell as well. And learning is multimodal. In other words, you're learning by using physical actions as well. Okay, another reason is obviously there are many ways in which you can learn a language. There's no limit to different methods of language teaching. And you can start from the basis of grammar, if you want, or from the basis of vocabulary. Alternatively, what you can do is try and look at the world today. What are young people interested in? And I suggest to you there are 2 things that young people are interested in today. The first one is technology, and I know that here in Korea you're all very interested in technology, aren't you? Yeah. Okay. Also, cooking is very popular around the world. If you turn the television on, you'll see lots of programs about cooking. So what we did in effect in this project is start by asking what are young people interested in, and digital technology and cooking are 2 things they're interested in, and then using that as the basis for how we might approach language learning and teaching. Okay, why should you be interested in the digital kitchen here in Korea? Well, I think there's a very good reason for that, actually. So I looked up on Wikipedia, and it says that Seoul is ranked as the world's leading digital city. So that's a good reason why you should be interested in it here. And the tech capital of the world. So South Korea is also amongst the world's most technologically advanced and digitally connected countries. It has 3rd most broadband users. It's a global leader in electronic digital displays, semiconductor devices, and mobile phones. So basically, you're well in advance in terms of digital technology, so it makes sense, doesn't it, to try to apply that to the teaching of Korean language as well. So you have that advantage already to make use of. Okay, so let's go on to the technology that we're using. This is basically an application of what's called pervasive computing, or you may have heard the term ubiquitous computing as well. And so what this means is that the computer, the technology, is not the focus. So digital technology which is integrated into everyday objects and activities. So it means that computers are then not the focus. The computers disappear into the background, and the technology is used to help people carry out tasks. So a good example of this, which you're all familiar with, is satellite navigation in the car. So the technology is there. Your car, in effect, is speaking to you and telling you what to do. If you follow the instruction, it goes on to the next phase. If you don't follow the instruction, it recalculates the route and gives you instructions to get you back onto the route. And we're doing something very similar in the digital kitchen. But the technology is not the focus. So when you're driving your car, are you focusing on the technology? Well, you shouldn't be. You should be focusing on driving. You should be focusing on the road, otherwise you'll have a crash. Okay? So the idea is the same there. The focus is not on the technology. The technology is simply there to help you carry out a task. Okay, so that's the technology part. So how about in terms of language teaching then? So as you're all language teachers, I suppose you've heard something about task-based language learning. This is now quite popular in a number of countries around the world, and it's got quite a lot of literature and research to it. So our approach is using task-based language learning, and the task is a simple one. It's cooking. So this is a task that everybody is familiar with. So we're combining task-based language learning with digital sensors. And so the learning design is based on task-based learning principles. The learners have got to complete a task, and the task is cooking. It's an everyday task. It's a real task. They've got to use language to complete the task, and they have to learn aspects of the language while completing the task. So learn primarily vocabulary, but other aspects as well. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at a television program. This is from Voice of America, VOA, which I think you're familiar with here. And we're going to listen to this report about the digital kitchen and how it works. Okay.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. A talking kitchen teaches students how to cook French and speak French. Researchers at the Newcastle University in Britain have developed the French Digital Kitchen. Professors Paul Seedhouse and Patrick Oliver led the project. Professor Seedhouse says it works like a satellite navigation system in a car. The sat-nav speaks to you, and it tells you, for example, to turn left. And if you turn left, then it continues with the program. If, for example, you turn right, then it's a mistake. So it loops back and gives you further instructions. The kitchen equipment and tools use motion sensor technology, similar to the Nintendo Wii game system. The sensors help a computer guide the students through instructions in French. The system can tell whether you've done what you were asked to do or not. So let's say, for example, the system tells you to take some butter and cut it with a knife. The sensor in the knife not only knows that the knife is moving, but it also knows what motion the knife is making. Students can ask the computer to repeat the instructions or translate them into English. There are vocabulary lessons before and after the cooking. Professor Seedhouse became interested in the idea after he visited a talking kitchen designed for a different purpose. It was actually for communicating with people who suffer from dementia. It can tell them, for example, that they've left the oven on. He says the French digital kitchen turns the process of learning language into a real-life experience. But the idea, known as task-based language learning, required a few changes as the researchers were designing the system. For example, if they had a sink full of water, as soon as people finished cooking with an instrument, they would throw it into the water. And for us, that's deadly, because the digital sensors were immediately ruined. The system could be available for sale by the end of 2012. Adding the technology to a new kitchen could add an estimated 10 to 20% to the building costs. The system could also be added to an existing kitchen. The researchers are also developing portable versions, and the European Union has given them money to begin programs in 6 other languages, including English, Italian, and Spanish. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Persutti. You can find links to videos about the Talking Kitchen at voaspecialenglish.com.
So she spoke English very slowly and clearly, didn't she? Right, so what we're looking at then is digital kitchens that speak to users in European languages, and they give them step-by-step instructions on how to cook European food. So, what has this got to do with your conference theme, which is differentiated language education? Well, basically, we look at the digital kitchen as a learning environment. It provides learners with lots of choices. It provides them with a range of supports to cater for different learning styles and different proficiency levels. And the learners can decide for themselves which to use. So we are offering an environment for differentiated language education. So how does this work in practice? Well, before they start cooking, they can watch a video of how to cook the meal, and they can watch the video in the first language, in the second language, with subtitles or not. What we usually find is the more advanced learners say, no, I don't want to watch a video, I want to start doing it. And the beginner level learners choose to watch the video 1 or 2 times with the subtitles in their own first language, so they know what they're expecting. The second help is that partners can help each other. So we found sometimes one partner was better at the second language and one partner was better at cooking, so they could help each other with skills. They can work out meaning from the kitchen context. I'll show you some videos with examples of that. They can work out what things mean. They can ask for repetition from the system. They can ask for photo help, and they can ask for video help. So if the kitchen speaks to you in the foreign language and you don't understand what it's asking you to do, you can press a button and it'll give you a photo or a video so that you do understand. Okay, so how do we do this then? We've got digital sensors. Oops. Okay, we've got digital sensors, and these are attached to all of the utensils and the food ingredients and different parts of the kitchen. So we can put these sensors anywhere and they will detect what it is that you are doing. So the system will know whether you're moving things correctly or not. So here, for example, you can see that these utensils have got sensors embedded in them. Here on the oven, you've got a sensor attached to the knob so it knows that you've switched the oven on. Okay, so each time an item is moved correctly or incorrectly, participants can be given appropriate feedback so they know whether what they've done is correct or not. Have they done the right thing? Okay, so apart from those utensils, you've also got what we call a graphical user interface. That's this thing here. It's basically a tablet computer like an iPad, but we built a special case for it as well. And that is for users to communicate with. So they can then press a button, they can ask for repetition of the instruction, or they can ask for help getting a photo or a video. So here's an example of a photo. So if it tells you to take the pastry cutter and you don't know what a pastry cutter is, then you press the button and you see a photo and understand what it is. And the same with actions. If it asks you to dust the kitchen counter with some flour and you don't understand that, you press the button here and you'll see a video showing you how to dust flour on the counter. Okay, so that's the graphical user interface. So this is what it looks like to the user. And it's got a number of symbols there. So you can move backwards within the system. That's this one. You can repeat the last action. You can get help. You can pause it. You can show that you've completed the action. You can navigate forward. This tells you how many stages there are to the recipe. This is 48 stages, so that's a long recipe. It tells you where it is in it, and then you can close it down as well. So what you've got then is task-based learning with an edible product. You can eat what you've made at the end of the lesson. And it involves all 5 senses, so it's fun. Okay, let's see another video now. It's not Voice of America this time.
Welcome to Langcook, the European Digital Kitchen. The Digital Kitchen is a situated learning environment where you will be guided step by step through a recipe by audio messages played to you as you progress. The Digital Kitchen works by detecting your movements based on sensors. There are sensors attached to different kitchen equipment, including food containers and utensils. When you pick up these different objects, the kitchen knows what you're doing and when to move on to the next step in a recipe. There are also 2 important tools you can use to communicate with the kitchen. These have sensors inside too. The first is the Help tool. The second is the I'm Ready tool. For the Help tool, there may be times when you need a little more assistance to understand an instruction. In this case, the kitchen will ask you if you need any help. If so, you should use the red Help tool. At the end of each cooking step, the kitchen will ask you, "Are you ready?" If you are, you should use the green "I'm ready" tool to let the kitchen know that you're ready to move on. You will also notice a touchscreen in the kitchen. This touchscreen allows you to communicate with the kitchen, as well as displaying pictures and videos of certain cooking actions when you have requested any additional help. The touchscreen also has other features which you might want to use. Let's have a look at these. Remember, the digital kitchen uses sensors to guide you through the recipe. You should concentrate on cooking and having fun.
Okay, so lots of people at this point say, oh, well, very nice technology, but how do you know that anybody learns anything? Okay, and so throughout the projects, we had a very strong research element to find out whether people did learn anything or not. So we asked the questions, which vocabulary items are learnt by users? What kinds of language learning opportunities are generated? And are the users of the kitchen able to follow the instructions and cook the envisaged meal or not? The answer to the third one is very simple. Yes, they all did manage to cook the recipe, although the taste of the recipe at the end, it varied from one individual to another. Some people are better cooks than others. Okay, so in the European project, we gathered data from 250 learners in 5 universities around Europe. And so we did an individual pre-test and post-test. We looked at 16 vocabulary items, all food ingredients or utensils. We did video recording and CA analysis, and we interviewed them as well. And we use this data to improve the design as well. So I'll give you the results from the English digital kitchen. So that was 50 learners. Okay, so we've got a graph here which shows what happened. So we see the pre-test before the cooking, post-test after the cooking, delayed post-test 2 weeks later. And you can see here the average scores of the items. So you see there's a significant gain between the pre-test and the post-test. And what we weren't expecting was that it would go up 2 weeks later on the delayed post-test. I was very surprised by this. So I'll explain why it went up then in a moment. So that's the average gain. However, it's not that simple. So if you look at these two examples, so we've got 2 words which were tested. One of the words was milk. Okay, now almost everybody knows the word milk, so if you look at the scores here, it's very high to start with, and so there's not much gain between the pre-test and the post-test. However, the next word is sieve, and not many people knew what a sieve was, so you can see it starts very low, and there's a huge gain, and then a further gain in the delayed post-test. So there's a lot of variation between the items there. So I wondered why it was that students were getting higher scores 2 weeks later because they'd been outside the digital kitchen. And so we therefore asked them what exactly they'd been doing in the 2 weeks after the cooking session before coming back to take the test again. So the most popular answers, so these were students who were actually in England, in Newcastle, and they said after it, sometimes they wrote down some of the words and memorized them, they saw some of these 16 items and remembered them, or they did some cooking and then they used these items and remembered it. So this showed then that there was a link between their learning in the digital kitchen and their experience in the real world afterwards, and that's why they were able to improve their learning, because it was relevant to the real world for them. Okay, so I'm now going to mention, we'll go from the European to the Korean digital kitchen, PhD study which is still going on at the moment, but I can tell you something about that. So this is looking at vocabulary teaching through cooking, language as a window to culture, so that school activity for teaching Korean cultural aspects can be encouraged. So you're not only learning Korean language, you're learning something about Korean cuisine, and also learning aspects of Korean culture as well. So by using recipes, 4 skills as well as the language system can be taught, and you can also look at pragmatic usage of fine-grained honorific and polite expressions, and promoting task-based activities in the Korean education curriculum. So if you want to know more about that project, please go and see Jaeuk's talk this afternoon. Now, you might be interested in how it is we can manage to create recipes for Korean, so I'll just explain that to you very briefly. So apart from the digital sensor software, we also created what's called authorware, and so this means that anybody in any language around the world can create recipes. So what it does then is it has a system where you input your own data. So let's say you want to do a recipe for kimchi pancakes, right? So you will record your own voice. You can do everything on your mobile phone actually. So you just speak on your phone. You record using your own voice. You record audio files, and then you upload the audio files onto the system. And the same with photographs and video. You can take photographs or videos of you cooking kimchi pancakes, again with your mobile phone. You upload it onto the system, and then you program the sensors and you say which sensor must the system look for. Okay, so you can also use any script as well, so we're able to use Korean script there. So that just shows you how you're able to create a recipe in Korean. Right, so we're going to have a look now at what actually happens then. So this is a kitchen in Newcastle, and these 2 learners are Turkish actually, and they're speaking English a bit, but they're also speaking Korean. Okay, can we play the video, please?
Okay, let's pretend we are doing it. Jeopsy is the name of the food.
Sure.
Jeopsy should be the plate. Yubu chobap, put the yubu chobap on the plate.
Yeah, smart. Yeah, you're right, I think.
I hope so.
Yeah, you would show up.
Okay, so what we saw there then is that students tend to work with each other and they use the context to work out meaning. So first of all, they thought geopsy was the name of the tool, and then they tried to work this out that it was it was the plate that the yubul chabak should be put on. So they're working as a pair, and they're also working out meaning using context there, and using the system. Okay, what you also get when the students are working together is you get information transfer. They're trying to help each other. Okay.
So, jibke, mul, toma, kimchi, and mikado.
Yeah. Okay, so what they were doing there was going through words to make sure that they'd learnt them. Okay, so in this video, we can see that they're checking the learning again, and we'll see that the learning is multimodal, so they're actually using the objects physically to help with their learning.
I'm going to play this again because I want to know the how.
Yeah, okay, so he's emphasised, he says, I know what this means, this is a cow, right, I'm shaking this. Okay, so what are the conclusions that we can draw about the project so far? So first of all, it's an effective, pervasive language learning environment. We know that it's effective because we've researched it and we know that learning takes place. So first of all, the kitchen provides a context for learning which is supported by technology. It's an environment for differentiated learning. Secondly, learners are highly motivated to learn in the digital kitchen. Why? Because it starts with analysis of their motivation. So young people like technology and they like cooking. So we've integrated those with language learning. Thirdly, we've learned from the research that learners are able to learn new language and apply existing language knowledge. And we found that some learning in the kitchen continues in the real world afterwards if they're doing some cooking. The Korean Digital Kitchen project showed that touching and using objects to carry out a task means vocabulary learning is significantly higher than if photos of the objects are used. So if you're interested in that aspect, please go to Jayuk's talk where he'll be able to explain that experiment to you. So we also showed that users are able to learn aspects of a language and a cuisine at the same time. So in other words, they're learning not just one thing, but two things. In fact, they're also learning cultural aspects at the same time. And we know this because of the post-test questionnaires and by interactional data. So they've told us what they have learned. We also found something about skill transfer. We've sometimes put students together where one person is better at cooking and the other person is better at the language, and usually they're able to transfer skills to each other, they're able to help each other. And another important point is that learning is enhanced by use of all of the senses: touch, taste, smell, sight and hearing. So in other words, people's learning of vocabulary is enhanced when they're using all of the five senses rather than 2 or 3 senses. So this is a differentiated language environment. This is the theme of your conference. So learners are able to decide for themselves which supports to use or not use in this environment. So the supports include videos showing how to cook the food, the kitchen context, photo and video help, and also using your partner. Learners are able to learn new language and apply existing language knowledge. some learning in the kitchen continued in the real world afterwards. So in terms of recognition then, the French kitchen won the EU European Language Label Award in 2012, and the subsequent European Digital Kitchen project was shortlisted for 3 prizes as well. So the digital kitchens are portable. You can carry them around and use them in any kitchen anywhere in the world. So we've taken them to schools, community centres, adult learning centres, and even Europe House in London. So lots of people have tried them out in different contexts. So the result then, 7 years of collaborative work so far. We've worked with partners across Europe, and we've produced a network of 7 functioning portable kitchens. So each portable kitchen is able to teach 7 European languages, cultures and cuisines, plus Korean. So Catalan, English, Spanish, Italian, Finnish, German, Korean and French. Each unit consists of the tablet, a set of utensils, sensors and attachments. You can then use those in any kitchen anywhere. Okay, so that's what we've done so far. What have we got next? Well, we've got a book coming out. It says 2017, but actually I think it'll be out at the end of 2016 now. And it has a chapter on the Korean digital kitchen for you to read about. We've also produced Korean materials. One was kimchi pancake and the other one was soya rice, wasn't it? Tofu rice. Tofu rice. So 2 recipes so far. Okay, the third thing is smartphone app. So on this Monday I got some very good news. We've got a new grant from the European Union, and that is to produce a smartphone app. So this will be called Lingua Cuisine. And so the idea will be that imagine this is your smartphone and you're at home in your kitchen. So the smartphone will speak to you in a foreign language and it will guide you through cooking. If you don't understand what it says, you just press a button and it will show you a photo or a video so that you can understand what it says. So the grant is for us to do European languages, but we hope we'll be able to work with Korean colleagues to produce a Korean version of that. And I like kimchi pancakes very much, actually. Okay, so the smartphone app, that project will start this September. So I think the smartphone app will be available possibly towards the end of 2017, although it might be 2018. So we'll let you know when that's available in Korean. Then it's useful for you to give to your students. The app will be free, it'll be downloadable for free, and then your students will be able to use it to improve their Korean at home while they're learning to cook Korean food. Okay, so if you'd like to get some further information on that, you can look on the website, europeandigitalkitchen.com. It's got lots of information in different languages. It's also got lots of videos, including the Voice of America video, if you want to see that one again. And we've got videos in various different languages. There's also Facebook or Twitter. I don't like Facebook or Twitter myself. It's not me doing it. And in conclusion, then, So I think that Korea is at the forefront of digital technology. So what I've shown there is that this is one way of using digital technology for language learning. Of course, there are very many possibilities for using technology for language learning. This one I think is effective because, as I said, there's a strong link between language, culture and cuisine, and this project makes the most of the link between those cultures. So thanks very much for listening to me, and thanks once again for the invitation to come here.